Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cows in the Field. This is Justin here. And I'm just here to introduce the Minority Report re-release that you're about to hear. Funny story about this episode is actually we recorded it twice. So the first time we did it, it just didn't feel right. There was something wrong. The energy was low. And so we sat down and did it again. And what you're about to hear is an episode that at least I'm pretty proud of. It's an early one, so it's a little rough around the edges, but it has some fun philosophical insights that we get into. And I mean, we both really enjoy the movie. So hope you enjoy it. And we have some really good episodes coming up in 2023. Coming up next, in 2 weeks, we'll be talking to John Gabris of High and Mighty and Action Boys about Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, which is a much requested episode and one we were very excited to do. And we can't wait for you to hear that. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy Minority Report from March of 2020.
Because this might be the inner chronicle of what we are. And we have to articulate ourselves. Otherwise, we would be cows in the field.
Welcome to Cows in the Field. This is a movie podcast. I am Justin.
I'm Laura.
And today we're talking about Minority Report by Steven Spielberg.
2002.
Yeah, so this is a movie which we both really like, and we watched.
Love this
yeah, it's a
movie.
fun movie, and it's a Tom Cruise vehicle, right?
Yes.
it's Tom Cruise kind of peak cruise in some sense.
Yeah.
Although I guess he has many peaks in his career.
Yeah, I don't know that you can. I mean, we could do a Tom Cruise podcast if you want to do. Not. He's looking at me like he doesn't want to do that, but we did an entire summer of Tom Cruise.
Yeah, we did the
2
summer.
summers ago.
Yeah.
Summer of Cruise. I loved it. Justin burnt out on it.
It was fine. So Tom Cruise here stars John Anderton. He works for the pre-crime unit of the DC police. He's lives in a bachelor apartment. He does a lot of drugs. He works real hard, and he has a lot of baggage.
He does. Yeah. He has a little dead son.
A little dead son that's haunting him. It's a little bit like the dead wife in the Nolan movies.
Right. Yeah. Colin Farrell is the second lead as Danny Whitwer, the Irish Catholic boxer.
I think of him as a boxer, but,
okay.
Because
he has that one. He's got that
boxing scene. He gets into the ring. He knows how to hold himself.
He knows how to throw a punch.
He knows how to throw a punch. He's also got the Irish chain, right? He's got that
Does
cross.
that make him a boxer?
I think of it kind of as goes.
Neither
I
here nor there.
associate it with the kind of boxing culture.
Okay.
Got the
More
chain.
officially, he's the twink from the Fed.
Twink from the Fed, self-identified.
Yeah. He's here to he's from the Justice Department, and he's here to sort of assess pre-crime.
Pre-crime. Yeah, he wants to figure out what's going on with pre-crime because they might take it national. Who knows? Maybe it'll go national. They've had no crime in DC, or no murders.
No murders.
No murders.
No
Okay,
murders.
wow. Well, yeah. Samantha Morton is Agatha, pre-Krog who likes milk. She likes to sit in a bath of milk, and she needs a watch. She's always asking, when is it? She's like, when is it? Is this now? So that's Samantha Morton. She's great. This is funny because I was always like, who is this person? You know? And then we saw Samantha Morton's in lots of other movies, and we recently saw Morven Callar and
Which I think is this year.
Really?
I think it's 2002 as well.
Okay, fascinating. Really? Oh my god.
Maybe I'm wrong.
That's
on
crazy. Okay, well I'll look that up, but that's
Okay.
really interesting. Yeah, so that's Samantha Morton. Who's next?
Max von Sydow. He plays Lamar Burgess. He's the director of pre-crime, and he's like so obviously the bad guy. He's not just because he's got like a Swedish accent that sounds very foreboding, but these movies, it always goes all the way to the top.
It always goes all the way. I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe in 2002, people were like, maybe it could be anyone. And from now, we're like, it's obviously he's the bad guy.
LA Confidential, every movie, it's always the sort of elder statesman white guy.
Yeah. Good call. So yeah, those are the. I mean, I would really think those are the main
That's
characters,
it.
right? There's like a bunch of other small characters, and but those are the main people. And what happens in this movie, right? So this is a movie set in the near future, the year 2054, I
Yep.
believe,
Yep.
and everything's looking really good. It's no murder, driverless cars, eye scanning, facial detection, and you've got what's at the core of it all: pre-crime.
Pre-crime.
Nobody can commit a murder because it's foreseen by these 3 mutant humans who live in a pool of milk. And then they scan their brains. They have some sort of brain scanner on them that like checks to make sure it sort of like takes them image from their mind and puts it on a screen.
Projects it on a screen, right?
And then
And
they
records it.
Records it, and then they figure out who it is. They're like, okay, it's this guy with the candlestick in the drawing room. And then they go to his house, and this wonderful like opening scene, which sort of explains everything, like gives you a flavor of how the pre-crime unit works. And they stop the guy from killing his wife, and you're like, man, this is really cool. But of course, nothing is ever perfect. And guess who shows up? Danny Whitworth. He's from the Justice Department. He wants to make sure this is legit. He starts asking a lot of questions.
He's asking questions.
He's asking for too many questions. He's looking for flaws. The flaw's always human, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Tom Cruise is not a guy that he's a guy who's got the confidence to answer questions like this.
He's a true believer.
He's a true believer. He does the ball thing where he rolls the ball down the thing, and Whitworth grabs it, and he's like, you knew it was going to fall, so you're a precog too. And it works. And so then he's sniffing around, and what happens? What happens next? I can't remember.
Agatha, I can't remember why John Anderton ends up in the temple, but he's in the temple with the precogs.
He goes in to show Whitworth.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe
he takes him in. He's like,
lingering
all right.
afterwards.
Yeah.
But Agatha grabs him and says, "Can you see?" and shows him an old murder. Just her, not the other precogs. The caretaker, Wally, the caretaker who tends to the precogs, was like, "No, that's not possible. She wouldn't show you that." But he sees a woman drowning, and he starts to ask questions. He goes to this wacko prison where they keep all of the people that have been haloed because of the crimes that they were going to commit imminently, and tries to look to see some of the footage, some of the precog visions from this drowning, and finds that there's some missing information. I think that's what sets all this in motion.
Yeah, because he asks some questions. He asks Lamar, which is the wrong guy to ask, and Lamar decides to frame him. Yeah, so then the next thing we get is that the next pre-crime prediction is John Anderton, that is Tom Cruise, killing Leo Crow. And that sets in motion the rest of the movie, and John Anderton's trying to figure out what's going on, and eventually he figures it all out. He does kill Crow. He sort of escapes. They capture him. He's haloed, but in a kind of magical, almost unreal last 20 minutes coda.
Mm-hmm.
He escapes from the prison, reveals the truth of Lamar Burgess, and saves the day pre-crime shut down. So it's a real...
Everything just goes back to normal, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And he has to do a lot of crazy things along the way. He has to take out his eyeballs.
He does remove his eyes. That's true in one of the best scenes. And...
he's committed.
Well, he's got to clear his name.
Yes.
I mean, that's
very
the thing.
important.
Like, I was sort of thinking about like why it is that he goes to try to clear his name as opposed to go into hiding. And, to a certain extent, he's fighting against himself because, as you point out, he's a true believer in pre-crime. So, if he clears his name, then that will show, like, it's the very dilemma that Lamar faces at the end, where if he clears his name, that shows pre-crime doesn't work. Right. So he in a way has to go through with it to like save his what he cherishes as his career. Right. And we learn why Anderton cares so much about this. It's because he cares. He wants to prevent anyone else from ever having to lose a loved one, because he himself, we learn, has lost his son. He was at a pool with his son, and the son's kidnapped and presumed dead. And he
It's a hard
blames
scene.
himself. He feels immense guilt for this.
Yeah.
And
And it causes separation with his wife. His wife is still around, but they're not together anymore, and this has caused a rift between
yeah,
them.
they've got the rift, and so he is in a situation where he thinks maybe by preventing another murder or every other murder, he can sort of rest safe and sound
Yeah.
at the end of the day. But as we've of course, he's running from his past as much as he's running from his future. And he's put in this dilemma where he really can't avoid doing what he has to do in some sense. And the precog is vindicated to a certain extent, and then he has to ultimately fight against the pre-crime unit. But yeah, I was just thinking, like, if you were accused of this crime and you knew exactly how you were going to do it, it'd be very easy to not do it.
To not do
So
Yeah.
it's sort of because he's trying to prove his innocence too much that he runs head first into doing the very crime he's predicted to do. And so I do find that interesting that in a way he sort of is his own worst enemy.
Yeah.
It's fun watching him run around and jump on driverless
He
cars.
does
and
so much running. Everybody runs. That's what he says.
Everyone runs.
Everyone
That's
runs.
running is a central theme of the movie.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that it's fun to think about with this movie is that the future is really interesting, right? The future is something where there's a lot of driverless cars. They're kind of going up and down buildings. There's retinal
This is your dream,
scans.
we should say. You are obsessed with driverless cars.
Well, I think in the end, my ultimate dream, I'm gonna come clean on this one. My ultimate dream is VR plug-in. My ultimate dream really is everyone lives like the precogs live. You're in a milk bath. It's warm. You have all your nutrients provided for you.
You're psychotic.
And you just VR everyone else. It's like you're in a virtual world completely. Or here's another way to put it. My dream is to be haloed and then live in my little halo sack, right? In the prison. That's my ultimate dream. So
Right.
Prison halo sack.
Cool.
Now, second best is if we have to leave the house,
Yeah.
then I pick driverless cars over non-driverless cars, because at
Mhm.
least driverless cars not going to get in accidents as much. Also, can get work done in the driverless car.
Mm.
Can do other things. I'm no distracted driving. I could just be watching Minority Report in my driverless car.
Right.
The other thing I like about it is the driverless car drops you at your door. There's no like, dropped you at the garage and you got to walk in. No, right in the door.
Yep.
It just opens up
That is cool.
into the living room. You just walk right in, right to the Chinese food that you've strewn throughout your apartment.
Ugh.
And
His
just-
apartment is grody.
yeah. And then you just pop in the old VHS tape of your dead son.
Tough
No
times.
no delays. Just go straight in for it, right? You don't got to go through the garage and the mudroom.
You
Just
can't
go
tell.
straight
Justin's
in.
really interested in efficiency.
Yeah.
This is what this is about. The driverless cars are super cool.
So you agree on this one? You're into
No,
the
I
cool-
don't.
cool
I don't
driverless
trust
cars?
them. Like I said, my iPhone like barely functions. I'm not getting in a car that's like run by a computer. That's madness. I would definitely like to just. Feel strongly about human error over computer
I see.
error.
So you take, but what if you? Or I see. So, but what if the error rate was
But
lower?
I meant visually, they're cool in this movie.
Yeah, but what if the error rate was lower, but it was just not done by a human? Then you're cool. Then you wouldn't be cool with it.
Wait, say that.
So I'm thinking like, suppose humans, the rate of human error is higher than the rate of computer error.
Yeah, which is probably true, but I feel like the computer error is more disastrous.
Oh, I see. So I see. I thought you were saying like that you would still take human error over computer error, even if there was a lower rate of computer error, just because you like prefer it done by a human.
Yes, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
great. That seems crazy to me. I'd say just take the lower error rate. Anyway, all right. So, because at least you can look the human in the eye and go tisk tisk. Is that like what is it?
No, I just don't trust computers.
Yeah, but if the error rate is lower, then you should trust them.
Yeah, but I mean, are we talking quantity of error rate? Or are we talking, 'cause if they make one giant crazy error, I'm just saying,
I see. So
what if
you're
they
worried
take
about
over all of our cars and just like suck us into abyss? I don't know. I don't trust it.
okay.
We're getting off on a tangent.
Yeah, but I think driverless cars, I mean, again, number one option is milk bath. We all live in a milk bath. And then number two option is if we, driverless cars. Number
Okay.
three option is what we currently have,
Yeah.
which is the worst.
Yeah. No, I think the worst too, especially in Massachusetts, is this like roundabout situation where you have to like have a PhD in psychology to understand what the fuck the other driver is thinking.
Yeah, it's like a game theory where you're like, all right, here we go. Like you got to find the Nash equilibrium for when you're going to jump in the
like, am I dealing
roundabout.
with a psychopath? Am I dealing with somebody who's overly cautious? Like, can I go and like, you know what I mean? When
Yeah.
you're trying to
And then you gotta
calculate
throw-
not just their velocity, but like what their brain state
Yeah,
is.
and then you got to throw in like a couple pedestrians who are like looking really unsure about whether they should cross, and
And
as
they're,
you
like,
slow
probably
down, they think,
students
they
because-
think like you're thinking that
Yeah.
you're going to slow down for them, but
Yeah.
you're not. You're slowing down to merge into
It's a nightmare.
Yeah,
I hate it.
yeah. So
I hate
driverless
rounds-
cars, right? Come on, no human error at all. Driverless
I don't know about
cars,
this,
straight up.
but I do think that six sticks are cool.
Okay, that's one you like. Okay.
Yeah, no, I like the weapons a lot in this movie. There are firearms. I mean, there's like two prominent guns in this movie. John Anderton's.
That's true. Yeah.
And the gun that Lamar Burgess is gifted, like the Civil War gun that he
Right.
then kills himself with.
Right.
But so they definitely do have firearms, but it seems like they're not used very often because they've got these six sticks and they have the like sonic boom guns
Yeah.
that kind of just make people fly backwards. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, though the sonic boom gun, I know it's supposed to be like less dangerous, but like if you sonic boom someone off a cliff, like it's much more dangerous.
Well,
than a
don't
gun.
use them near cliffs.
Well, I mean, same thing. If you sonic boom them like into a wall, that could cause some serious
I
lasting
thought they were
damage.
cool. I
They
like
are
the
cool.
six sticks a lot. I like when they say six stick. Get your six sticks ready,
Okay,
everybody.
I have a question about the six stick actually.
Yeah.
So you would think an efficient six stick wouldn't just make you like vomit immediately.
Projectile
Yeah.
vomit.
Yeah, because of course if you just do that, then you're like usually right after you throw up, you're like ready to go, right? You feel fine. You're like, okay, now I'm gonna keep chasing you. What a six stick should do, you would think, is make you feel like you're gonna be sick, like just like feel nauseated, right? That would like throw you down. But here's what I wonder. I wonder if what the six stick is doing is if you like hit someone in like the belly with the six stick, they would feel that nausea. The problem is that he hit him right in the neck, and it like was
Oh.
too close to his head or something, and
So
it just like
or his esophagus.
or
like
yeah,
that.
exactly.
You
It
think
just
that's
like
what was
jazzed
going
him up too much.
I see. So you don't think the six sticks usually always make projectile vomit?
Yeah, that's my hypothesis.
Okay.
That's my hypothesis. So
It's very fast though, because you're like, ooh, six sticks, what do they do? And then pretty quickly somebody
Yeah.
gets stuck in the neck and you're like, okay.
I mean, the other thing is that visually it doesn't make any sense for the six stick in a movie to just be like, oh, I'm feeling queasy.
yeah,
That's
it
not
might
as
need
like
some
compelling.
Tums.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
It's like, oh, put an order for some antacids and Pepto, please, and then I'll get on chasing Anderton. Yeah, that would not be fun. So just
No.
having the guy vomit is more fun, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah, I will say one thing about the 3D TV because I know it's something I don't know, we were both looking at it, I was like, yeah, 3D TV kind of interesting. No 3D glasses, that's cool.
Mhm.
But the quality is real low. That's like lower than 720p quality, right? That's like 480.
His home
max.
videos,
His
you
home
mean?
video, they're garbage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think also they're meant to perhaps be a little bit degraded. Like he's watched them so much
but
that they're starting to, well, yeah, okay. You wouldn't want
It's
that
like
either in the future.
but it's like a flash drive or something. It doesn't degrade. You know, it's not like it's not like a tape that like it only can play so many times before it runs out.
Right. Yeah. That's how I interpret it.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that Spielberg needed to have some way of differentiating like what was real from what was the 3D video, and like if it looked too good, we would just be like, oh, his son is back from the dead or something,
Yeah.
right? We would be confused, and so he needed to make it really low quality to like remind you, because also this movie, we should have mentioned, the quality of the movie is low. In the sense that the look of the movie, in the sense that, and not, the look, in the sense that because they shot it on Super 35 high speed, so it's super grainy. It's like massive amounts of grain. And then they blew it out in the bleach bypass.
Yep.
Right. So this sort of like super high contrast, everything's overexposed.
Yeah, everybody sort of has halos.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah.
everybody's kind of glowing at the edges.
Yeah, and it's washed out, so it's like
Mhm.
looks kind of grungy.
Mhm.
And so if you had no way of differentiating the video from the grainy film,
Right.
it might be hard. So
Yeah.
it could have just been
So
like
you give it a
he's like,
pass.
yeah, for filmic reasons we need to have this, or else the audience will be confused.
Yeah.
But still, I'm thinking if my future 3D TV isn't 4K, I don't want the future. If it's not it's 4K or bust as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned for 3D
Yeah.
TV.
When's the last time you watched a DVD and what was your reaction to it?
Yeah, so this is a good story. So we watched the last time. No, actually, but the last time we actually was remember we had to watch Valley Girl. Because the only way we could get Valley Girl was on DVD. We had to
Okay.
buy the DVD and watch it.
Okay, but before this,
That
you
was for
swore
the
off
Nick
DVDs
Cage.
for forever and
Yeah.
ever. Amen.
Yeah, I swore them off because we watched Godfather. And I had the Godfather box set from my parents, which was just a DVD set. And we watched it, and it was garbage. It looks like garbage.
Justin was throwing our DVDs out the window. He's like, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah, it was absolutely like a horrible experience because that's a 3-hour movie. So just imagine having a horrible, and you can't stop because you're with friends.
Right.
And you can't
Yeah,
just be
if
like,
it were just with me, we would have stopped.
We would have stopped and like gone to Walmart or something to buy the DVD, the Blu-rays. But so we had to keep watching. I couldn't just be like tapping out and be like,
Yeah.
no. And it's 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And here's why it
You're having
sucks.
an
Here's why it
aneurysm.
really sucks. So it's shot by the Prince of Darkness. What's his name? Anyway, whatever.
I
The
don't know.
cinematographer, Gordon. Is it Gordon Herschel? Okay, whatever. And I can't remember his name. Anyway, and so everything is cast in shadows. It's all these darks with like the chiaroscuro lighting, with like everything is super like, framed around shadows and darkness. Now just imagine in DVD compression, the shadows are the things that gets crunched the most because the way they think of it is they're like, well, I'm trying to preserve detail in the highlights, so I'll kill the shadow detail and it won't matter. Well, then every shadow you see is just a bunch of blocks. It's just a bunch of like little blocks, artifacts that are just like fritzing in and out. And now you're talking about a movie where 80% of the frame is shadow in like a lot of these shots. So you're just looking at a bunch of like Lego blocks. I'm like, this sucks. This sucks. This is supposed to be one of the best movies ever. We're just sitting here watching like Lego Godfather version. I just like, why would I do this to myself? And yet I did it. And so then after that, I vowed I will never, ever, unless I have to.
Yeah.
Have to, in the sense that like there's literally no other way to watch the movie.
Right.
Watch another DVD.
Yeah.
And
so this is all to say, future TVs better be 4K. They better be 8 times the quality of HD. Right?
Yeah.
10 times the quality of HD.
Yeah,
in
no, you don't really
2084.
need it. There's a certain point where
2054.
pixel count doesn't really matter, and you want something more like bit depth or whatever. But
Okay,
like
whatever,
but
Justin.
I'm
What are you
saying
even saying?
4K is probably good enough.
Okay.
Okay, but 3D and 360 VR maybe then you want to go a little higher. But
I feel like you're just speaking Latin at this point. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about quality of video, okay? And this is I'm just saying, like I think Spielberg was probably didn't have a good home theater at the time, so he was like, yeah, this probably looks fine. But now looking back, I'm like, this is nothing.
Are you trying to say your
much.
home theater is better than whatever Spielberg had going on
In
in
2002?
2002?
Yes, totally. I think 100% because he probably didn't. There weren't Blu-rays back then. I'm pretty sure there were just
No.
DVDs, or Laserdisc, right?
Mhm.
But so best he's got is Laserdisc rocking on a 480 screen, right? I don't think there's any projector that's pumping even 720, right? Definitely not 1080 on that. So mine's better. It's totally better. And we have local dimming and everything. Granted, we don't have an OLED TV, but if you had OLED, it would be even that much better. So
Gosh. Now everybody's going to know we don't have an OLED TV.
I know it's embarrassing.
This is so embarrassing.
I chose for bigger over OLED. And it's just one of those things.
Oh my God.
Um,
Okay, Back to the Future. Justin was talking about the physical media, John Anderton looks at these home videos via little slides, and we were, that doesn't seem right. We don't use anything physically that. I mean, we have Blu-rays, but in the future, I imagine everything's just going to be
There's no reason
on
to
the
have
cloud.
yeah. I mean, the only people who are going to have physical media in the future, my prediction is like people who are distrustful of streaming media.
Like me.
You know, it's gonna be like you're gonna be such an old person when you grow up. You're gonna be like all like
I'm
our
already an old person.
child's generation is just gonna be like, why would you ever have anything physical? You just stream it. You just like license the content
Yeah.
per page, right? Like you pay like a dime a page per book, right? And like you watch per minute and shit like that. And
Mhm.
like we are sitting here like, no, but I bought the whole book and then I could read it anytime I want. It's gonna be like,
That's so
why
lame.
would you do that?
That's so
Doesn't
dumb.
make any sense.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
look forward to those conversations
yeah, that's
when I'm
gonna
like
happen.
hoarding all my books.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so
So
that, I don't think that quite gets it right. Although for the same reasons as you point out about the quality of the look of the home videos, I think it's more cinematic. It looks better for him to pick up a physical thing that has a label that says,
yeah,
like
that's right.
memories of Sean
Yeah.
than him clicking around in a computer to start streaming
Yeah.
something. The other thing I was thinking about are the newspapers. There's a
Yeah.
scene where John Anderton gets on the subway, which is already dangerous because everywhere you go, your retinas get scanned. So, he's getting scanned as soon as he's in the subway. And then there are a bunch of people, it's a really crowded subway car and everybody's got their newspapers, and the newspapers, the headlines like flash and change. And they say like, he's on the lam. And there's a picture of Tom Cruise, which is just like Harry Potter. That's how the newspapers work too. The moving images and
Mhm.
it's sort of magical paper reminded me of magical parchment
Yeah.
in
It's
Harry
like,
Potter.
yeah.
Which, we do get the news that way. If there
Yeah.
was breaking news, it would be like that, except for everybody would be on their phones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's getting it mostly right in
Yeah.
that regard. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a Twitter sort of, it's a Twitter feed that's updating.
Right.
I like that.
Exactly.
That's
It's
good.
just that there's no way anybody's gonna be holding a physical newspaper in 2054.
Well, unless it's the e-ink updating constantly kind of newspaper.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're thinking, maybe, right? Like maybe there's some thought that there's gonna be like,
But that would still
like
be
a
a
kind of
tablet, right? Or
no, but
you're
that it's
thinking
like
physical.
paper
Like
and
you own a e-ink paper,
yeah,
one
yeah,
physical paper
yeah,
that just like updates every
yeah,
like constantly.
yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Be kind of neat, right?
Maybe. I'd like that. I like to hold things in my hand.
Yeah, you such an old person. Tactile, I don't understand. Just manipulate it with your mind. Just bring it in. Just give me the VR goggles and like teach my mind to manipulate the objects in VR space. I don't need fingers. Fingers are overrated.
Yeah. Advertising? Did we talk about that already?
I don't know.
But
Yeah, they have ads.
They have ads
in the future.
Yeah, well,
they are ads in the future.
No, but I thought that was like
Sad to
one of the
say.
most prescient parts of it. Is
The
that
targeted ads.
the targeted ads? Yeah,
Yeah.
the targeted ads that follow you around because it's
Yeah.
part of this retinal scan situation where everywhere you go, if you walk into a mall, if you walk into a store, they'll be like, "Hi, John Anderton, how are those khakis working out for you?"
Yeah.
But you're just, you're walking down corridors in the subway, you're walking in any public space, your eyes are getting scanned, and you're getting targeted ads right to you, and that feels exactly like my experience on the internet.
Yeah.
Every time I'm on Facebook, if I was thinking about buying something in J.Crew and then I put it in the cart and then I was like, Laura, you don't need that. And then I closed the window. 2 seconds later, Facebook's like, hey,
Yeah.
don't leave now.
But here's the question.
Yeah.
I mean, would you prefer ads like that, or do you prefer like, when you at one point we watched the local news.
Mhm.
When you're watching the local news, they think you're 68 years old.
Yeah.
And so
Which
you're
we've already
getting-
established I am in my soul.
Well,
But I
you
don't-
don't ail from the ailments that are plaguing many 68-year-olds, and it's all like targeted ads about like prescription drugs. They're like,
Yeah.
do you have trouble maintaining an erection? Do you have rheumatoid arthritis?
Yeah.
Do you-
It's like autoimmune diseases, ED, and Chantix.
Yeah, and quitting smoking. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like I would personally prefer the ad to just be like, "Hey, I know you like this stuff."
Yeah.
And-
No, I do
and-
I do appreciate that it's quite targeted. I do appreciate seeing things that I might like. It's just the feeling of being followed around, realizing that you've got such a clear
Oh, I
footprint on
see.
the
Yeah,
internet
yeah,
that
yeah.
feels a little icky.
Yeah, it's like it's like Sting always said:
What?
"Every step you take, every breath you take, I'll be watching you." Right?
I was not picking up that joke at
Sorry,
first. I was
that's
like,
a,
what
it's a
are
quick
you
Sting drop
talking
there.
about?
Quick Sting drop. Um, Well, on that note, I think maybe what we should do now is take a little detour into Justin's philosophy corner. Do a little
Yes,
philosophy because
please.
this is a movie where their philosophy is kind of front and center, right? It's a
Hmm.
movie that involves some deep philosophical issues,
I think
and
like flirts with them and doesn't really grapple with
well,
them.
they're woven into the fabric of the
Yes.
plot in
Yeah.
a way that often isn't for movies, and I think that it I think it's worth actually just trying to tease apart what is going on because I think the way the movie sells itself is actually I think confused, but I do think there's something really interesting happening. So here's how I think it's how I think the movie sort of sets itself up and why I think that's wrong, and then why what I think
Mm.
is really going on. So the precogs are set up to apparently know the future, right? They ostensibly see the future. They know what's going to happen. They communicate that to us. But we, with that information, that is the pre crime people, can use that information to change the future, thus changing what it is that they know. But I think that is a problem. So that's already an inconsistency. So suppose, in fact, that you change the future. Well, then the precogs never knew the thing they knew, right?
Mhm.
So suppose to use a silly example that doesn't involve murder. Suppose the precogs know that you're going to choose vanilla ice cream. Okay. So then they tell you this. They say, hey, when the choice is given to you, you're going to choose vanilla. And then you go, aha, well, now that I know this, I'm going to thwart you. And when the choice comes, I'm going to choose chocolate because I can choose whatever I want. And then you choose chocolate. Well, then it's true that you'll both choose vanilla and you will choose chocolate. But that's a contradiction. You can't choose vanilla and not choose vanilla.
Right.
And so I think that way of thinking about it, which the movie sometimes says, like this is explicitly says like this is what's gonna happen. Like Cruz says the precogs don't see what you intend to do, they see what you will do.
Hmm.
But then of course they stop the person from doing that. So then the person doesn't do that. Okay. So that I think way of interpreting it is not doesn't even make sense. It's incoherent.
Mm.
What is the precog's power? I think that they have some power, presumably. What is it? So here's the way I think of it. So what the precogs see is what would happen if nobody intervenes to stop it. Okay, so that's more like the ball thought experiment that Anderton gives to Whitwer.
The commission of the crime itself is absolute metaphysics. The precogs see the future and they're never wrong.
But it's not the future if you stop it. Isn't that a fundamental paradox?
Yes, it is. You're talking about predetermination, which happens all the time. Why'd you catch that?
Because it was gonna fall.
You're certain?
Yeah.
But it didn't fall. You caught it. The fact that you prevented it from happening doesn't change the fact that it was going to happen.
You ever get any false positives? Someone intends to kill his boss or his wife, but they never go through with it. How do the precogs tell the difference?
Precogs don't see what you intend to do. Only what you will do.
So in this ball experiment, what Whitwer knows is that the ball would have fallen had he not intervened. Okay. So in that sense, the precogs don't know the future. They don't know the actual future. Indeed, what they see is not the actual future. So they don't know it. But what they do know is something different. They know how things would have been had the pre-crime police not used the information that they gave them to prevent that thing. Okay, so I think that way of thinking about it, you can make sense of. But now the movie adds an interesting twist. So the movie presupposes that human beings possess a kind of free will. It's what I mean by free will here is that human beings often act freely in the following sense that nothing causally determines how they will choose when they choose. So the idea is you come up to a point and then you face a choice and then you just choose one way or the other. Nothing determines that you're going to go to the left or to the right. You just choose and you make it the case. Okay. So that's the kind of free will that is posited in this movie. Um, but now notice what happens. So now suppose the precogs foresee that if you're given the choice between vanilla or chocolate, um, you'll choose vanilla ice cream. Okay. But then I know this. They tell me, they're like, okay, Laura's going to go vanilla. It's a totally free choice on her part, but she's going vanilla. So then I know this. And so then I'm like, well, I really want the vanilla. So I'm not going to offer you that choice. I'm just going to give you cake. So I give you the cake.
Ew.
Would you eat the cake?
I don't like cake. Sorry, continue.
Damn it. Well, I give you cookies.
Okay.
So I give you these cookies.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're like, okay, cool. You're munching away on your cookies. I
Mhm.
get my vanilla ice cream. Now, of course, the precogs are by stipulation right that had you been offered the choice,
I would have gone
you would have
vanilla.
gone vanilla. But
Right.
it was a totally free choice on your part. Okay. So this is really interesting. This is really interesting power, right? They have the ability to know how you would freely act, even
Mm.
though you're not given the opportunity to act, make that choice. So that's a little bit like this. If I have a fair coin, totally fair. It's a chancy result, whether if you flip the coin, it lands heads or lands tails. Now, if I never flip the coin, okay, suppose I never flip the coin at all, still the precogs can know. If Justin had flipped the coin, it would have landed heads. They can know that fact, even though there's nothing about the world that would ever determine it to land heads or tails, except for the flip, and the flip never happens. They could still know how it would have landed. Okay, that's the kind of knowledge that they have. We're like the coin, right? We are like, our choosing is like the coin. Okay, so what's interesting to me is that this is sometimes called, in the history of philosophy, has been called middle knowledge. And this was an issue in the medieval philosophy era, and it was hotly debated whether God had middle knowledge.
Mm.
Okay, so in that whether he had knowledge about what free creatures would do in various circumstances. Now, on the one hand, some people thought, yes, it's obvious God has middle knowledge because God's omniscient. He knows everything. So he knows how you would freely choose if you were put in various circumstances.
Mm.
He knows you would freely choose vanilla, say. But on the other hand, some people said, well, maybe God knows all the facts. And when you have free will, there just aren't facts about how you would have chosen if you were put in various circumstances that you are not, in fact, in. So then there would be no fact for God to be ignorant of, and thus God's omniscience is compatible with him not knowing how you would freely choose.
Mm.
Okay, so because there's just nothing there to know. There's no
Right.
fact for God to know. Now, the reason this mattered to medieval philosophers, I mean, of course, some of these things they just debated for the sake of it, but this one mattered quite deeply to them, was because of the problem of evil. Now, the problem of evil is basically this. It seems that the existence of evil is incompatible with the existence of God, traditionally understood. So here's why. If God knows there's evil, he can prevent it. Why? Because he's omniscient. So if there's evil, he knows it. And he can prevent it because he's all powerful. He
Right.
can do anything he wants. And furthermore, he would prevent it. If he knew it and could, he would do it. Why? Because he's all good. He doesn't want there to be evil in the world. So then the question is, well, why is there evil? Okay. And then one answer is that the evil that we see is the result of free choices of human beings. And free will is a good that outweighs the potential evil that might come by it. So God sort of creates free creatures, and knowing that it's a lamentable side effect of his doing that, that some of them will act evilly,
Mm.
right? Okay, so that's the sort of that's the response. Like, why is there evil? Well, it's the result of free will, and free will is a good thing, and that's why God let us do this. We should be better, not God should be better. We're the ones who are screwing up. Okay,
Right.
but then the problem is this. If God has middle knowledge about how free creatures would act if put in various circumstances, then it seems God could just create those creatures which would freely choose to do good
Mm.
in every circumstance in which they're put,
Tricky.
right? And so now the problem's back because now it looks like God should have just why did he create us who are freely choosing some bad times? He should be creating some creatures who are only creatures who are freely going to choose good, and he knows which of them there are. All right, so that's why this is an interesting issue, and it's a classic issue in medieval philosophy, in the metaphysics and philosophy of religion, and I think it's really cool that this movie, in a way, is touching on this issue that is like it's one that's been with us for thousands of years, and of course it's approaching it from a modern perspective, a sci-fi perspective, but I think that is lurking in the background, and I just thought that was a really fun sort of aspect of this movie, at least
Yeah.
for me, because as a philosopher.
Yeah, no, it's super fun. I think this is why this movie is a cut above so many other sci-fi movies.
Definitely.
And why made me one of the many reasons we come back to it as much as we do.
I think that's right. I mean, I think it's also really well made, right?
Of course,
so
it's a Spielberg movie.
yeah. And we should also say, this is based on a Philip K. Dick novel, like
Mhm.
like many of the sci-fi classics in the recent years. And a lot of these ideas go back to Philip K. Dick.
But the pre-crime aspect of it, I think, is such a huge key part of why
Yeah.
this movie is so rewatchable and so fun. Because I think there's something so tantalizing about the idea of pre-crime. And watching him do it in the very first scene is like magical
really
and
fun.
beautiful. And they're playing classical music and he's sort of almost conducting. And
yeah, the
you
Schubert
watch-
Unfinished Symphony.
Yep.
It's great.
And you watch a man contemplate and on the verge of killing his wife for infidelity, and they stop it, and you're just
Mhm.
like, this is great.
Yeah.
I would love to have this. And then the more you see of it, the more unsettling it becomes. And especially because I didn't quite think twice about it in the moment, because I didn't know, the first time I saw it, I didn't know what a halo was. But in that scene, the very first scene where you see the guy, he raises his pair of scissors to kill his wife, he gets tackled by John Anderton. SWAT teams like come in from the ceiling and they halo him right there, which basically they imprison him. They make him brain dead, like right there. No judge, no jury. That's it. And that's really unsettling. So I think that
Right.
tension is what makes this movie so interesting. And certainly within that tension, this middle knowledge question too of how does it all work?
Yeah, how does this work, right? Could there even be such knowledge at all, right? And I think
Right.
that's what's really interesting. And to me, as someone who works on conditionals, I'm really interested in this question of like whether there even could be this kind of knowledge.
Mhm.
I do fall on the side of thinking that there can't be, and that so for me, this movie is not just science fiction; it's science impossibility in the sense that it's not just like it would be interesting if things were this way. It's like they cannot be this
Right.
way, right? Which I think is kind of cool. Like that like what we're seeing is a depiction of something that is actually impossible
Mhm.
for me.
Right.
in
It's
my
not just
opinion.
like a debate about whether or not we're going to have e-paper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, but that's a discussion for another time. We also want to talk a little bit about some of the themes of the movie, and I think we had a number of different ideas on that. But I think the one that I'm most interested in was the one you were thinking about the vision stuff.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. We can start there. So there's a lot of eye stuff in
Yeah.
this movie, which I was noticing this time around. I mean, obviously he gets his eyeballs removed. So there's a lot of eye stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
And
But yeah, that's right. We were talking about how
yes.
they surveil them through the eyes. They're
Yes.
tracking everyone through the eyes. They're targeting them with ads through their eyes, through retinal scans and stuff. And then there's this quote from the
drug dealer.
the drug dealer guy who has literally no eyes.
Yeah,
right?
his eyes have been removed.
He's probably removed them.
He's probably removed
He
that
just took
because
'em out.
that's what people do when they're bad people, is that they get rid of their eyeballs so
Yep.
that they can no longer be tracked.
Yep.
And he says, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Right. Which is actually a quote from Erasmus, who I guess it was sort of compiled common knowledge or something, or sort of common platitudes or something from in like the 1500s, I think.
Mm.
But actually, can we think about that quote for a second? I'm just
Yeah.
going to pause to think about that. So in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So of course, in one sense, that just means having one eye is better than zero.
Yep.
Right? Because it's like at least you got one eye.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, but then in the other way of thinking about it, you think, well, blind is really a metaphor, right?
Mhm.
So you think like the land of the blind isn't the people with no eyes or people who can't see. It's the people who have two eyes, but they don't use them to
Mhm.
see sort of properly. They can't sort of see the world as it is. And the one-eyed man is someone who has has blinded himself to a certain extent to the workings of the ideological workings of the world in order to see more clearly how things really are, to see sort of through the appearances. And that's kind of the situation we end up with Anderton, is that he himself he goes from being blind in a sense, right?
Mhm.
Metaphorically being blind. He doesn't understand pre-crime. He just kind of goes with it.
He's a true
He's a true
believer.
believer. He doesn't think about
He
it.
doesn't ask any questions.
No questions. He's all in.
Yep.
And that's why Lamar chooses him, right, to lead it up, is that he's such a zealot.
And he's blinded by grief as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
But then he goes from that to being blinded in a more literal sense, to having the eyes removed and being in this blind state for 12 hours or whatever, to being able then to see more clearly. He sees the pre-crime for what it is. He sees Lamar for who he is, and he sees, all of the, he sees perhaps even like, he maybe he's able to even come to terms with his own grief and sort of see the that maybe it wasn't completely his fault or something like that. There's a kind of exorcism of the grief there as well.
Yep.
And so that is the sense in which he comes to see by going blind, much like in the proverb or whatever itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And at one point when he has his eyes recovering, after he's had surgery to take them out, the doctor tells him, you can't take out the bandages for 12 hours or you'll go blind. But he has to open up the bandages before 12 hours because the little spiders we have in the future, they have these little spiders that go and scan your retinas like everything else in this world, like advertising too. And they're heat seeking. And he ends up getting caught by the spiders and has to lift up one bandage, show one eye so they can scan his new eyeballs that he has that belong to Mr. Takamoto, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So
it is interesting that his eyes, they go brown. He wears brown contacts for the rest of the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they go brown. I mean, they were like, he got new eyeballs that were brown.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah.
No, that's what I mean. Is like that he wears brown contact lenses.
Yes. To make it very clear
very
those
clear.
are not his eyes. And you know that I hate colored contacts in movies, but I think this works this time. I'll allow it. But perhaps they don't say it explicitly, but perhaps he did in fact go blind in that one eye that he that he exposed to the spider. So he could quite literally be the one-eyed man.
Right. That's should we shout out David Sims on that one?
Yes.
That was the Sims.
That was the Sims revelation, which I hadn't thought about, but it's super cool. But in addition to that, I mean, there's also Lamar Burgess says the eyes of the nation are upon us at one point. And it does seem like this whole movie revolves around surveillance, a paranoid concern about it goes both, the surveillance and the watching goes both ways. Because the government and the pre-crime cops are watching the citizens, both, through the precogs seeing their visions, but also through all of this, surveillance of the, retinal scans when you go onto the subway and tracking people's motions and using the spiders. But similarly, the people are watching the government and they have the power to decide one way or the other if they're allowed to continue on with pre-crime. And there is this kind of, it cuts both ways.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's good. I mean, I suppose that it's better that this is still a democracy, and that and that the public perception of free crime is as important and relevant as it's not just being shoved down the throats of the people because some bureaucrats have decided that this is a good thing.
Right.
I suppose that's potentially a small glimmer of hope in an otherwise somewhat bleak movie, right?
Yeah.
So I hadn't thought about that, but that's good. Okay, yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking too about eyes and about sight and vision is, of course, this whole thing revolves around the sight of the sort of inner eye, the visions of the precogs. And the inciting incident happens when Agatha grabs John Anderton and says, "Can you see?" And the question of like what they're seeing, as we've already talked about with middle knowledge, like what are they actually seeing?
Right.
And whether or not that's something that we can believe, because then we find out too that there's something called a minority report. So most of the time the precogs see the exact same thing, but sometimes they disagree. And, you know, the mother and father of pre-crime knew that this would cause too much doubt in the system. And so they devised a system which the minority report goes away. But if they're disagreeing, then what are they actually seeing? And, you know, it calls into question just the entire function of vision and whether or not you can believe what you see, which
Right.
is, you know, a whole magic of movie making is that you can't really believe what you see.
Oh, that's cool. I like that's a good spin on it. I like that.
Right? He's like the
Yeah.
master of creating illusions. That's what he
Yeah.
does for a living. And the whole movie is about whether or not you can actually trust your eyes, trust the vision.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, that's really cool. I think though that you know, I think this movie portrays, and I think you might have mentioned this to me actually when we first watched it, but this movie portrays the precog situation as a particularly vulnerable uh epistemically vulnerable judicial system, in the sense that what if they're wrong? And you pointed out that, like, well, the judicial system as it is full of these kinds of vulnerabilities because we rely on witness testimony, eyewitness testimony. Eyewitness testimony is often flawed and
Yeah, it's
wrong. And what else
really
can
a
we
mess.
do? I mean, there's not much else to do except to just be like, well, we have to just, we don't have perfect information. And so we have to make decisions based on imperfect information. And
Mhm.
sometimes that will mean putting people away, unjustly because we did it, they didn't commit the crime. I guess the stakes are higher in the sense that you're putting them away with no jury and
Right.
there's no procedure except for some 3 mutant people saw you do it in some weird sense. And but yeah, it is like, when they talk about like, well, like what if they make a mistake and stuff, it's like, well, justice systems that's like a product of the justice system, is that like you have to act on imperfect information, and this is how it goes. I guess that, yeah, but I guess
The difference is that the government's pretending that it's a completely perfect
oh,
system.
that's true. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah,
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, what Colin Farrell is trying to
he's
sniff
trying to
out.
sell us out. Yeah,
That's the whole reason Lamar Burgess is going to the lengths of killing somebody, is to make sure that there are no doubts whatsoever about the validity of the system, about the strength of the system, and about the fundamental ickiness of the system. Because the reason he kills that woman is because we find out that she's the mother of Agatha and she wanted her daughter back.
Yeah.
And if people really understood that the precogs are not saints or oracles or what the inhuman, because I think at one point John Anderson says like it's better if you don't think about them as human.
Yeah.
As soon as we start to think about them as people
Yeah.
sitting in that milk bath, then the whole thing crumbles.
Yeah, then it is a system of slavery, and you
Mhm.
see that the whole system is built upon a lie and a whitewashed lie and slaves at the center. And in that regard, it is an allegory for the U.S. in general, like the history of the United States. And yeah, and I think that despite what I said earlier about, yeah, I would love to just sit in a milk bath, I wouldn't want to sit in a milk bath against my will.
Right. Looking at murder all day.
Looking at murder all day. No, I would want to sit
No matter how much dopamine they've got you hooked up to.
Actually, dopamine is powerful stuff, so maybe I would take that choice. But I would want to look at other things besides murders. But yeah, too, I want to look at some philosophy too. And I want to watch Sicario a few times, once a week at least.
Oh my God. You guys, there will definitely be a Sicario podcast. I can't stop it.
Yeah, but that's a really good point. Yeah, I think the other thing. Oh, okay. Can I say this point? You raised this point, but I think it's a really good one, which
Please.
is justice is blind, which is a great. That's another metaphor that's in the system and in everything that's happening, and you get the poster is Tom Cruise at like the blinded Lady Justice,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it really is. Because the bandage is over one eye,
Mhm.
right? And so it's like, it really is clear that Spielberg has this thing in mind, right? He's playing with these ideas. Now, they're not all fitting together because, of course,
Right.
justice is blind. The whole idea is that justice isn't supposed to be like, you're not supposed to be prejudged in the way that, in fact, this system is prejudging you. You're supposed to be given a fair trial. No fair trial in this.
Nope.
So it is like almost like being deployed, like weaponized against you in a way. But I find it really interesting that he does throw in that imagery. Then the other thing that I wanted to mention about this, about the issue about blindness, is that, I think there's the connection between blindness and ignorance. So there's really, it's a dual metaphor here, and I'm not actually sure whether one of these has to be right or if they could somehow both be right. So there's the sense in which you go blind in order to see. But then, right, because like you see the world as it is, and Anderton sees the precog system as it is. But then there's another sense in which you go blind in order to not see, which is what I think happens when I think both Anderton and Agatha are trying to actually find peace, right, and forget the things that, in the case of Anderton, forget or at least get over the death of his son and that guilt that he feels. And for Agatha, it's to just stop seeing these murders. Right. She does not want to have this superpower anymore. She just wants to live a normal life. And so for her, going blind is to lose the foresight and to just become a normal human being and live in this little island in the middle of nowhere where she doesn't have to, she's not close enough to anyone to see their future. And so I think that I think is it's a dual metaphor, and I don't know which way it ultimately should cut, but I think it's interesting that blinding is kind of goes with losing your knowledge, losing your foreknowledge in the case of Agatha.
Right. For Agatha, she's so sick of the future.
She's done with the future. Then the other thought was so Anderton, the very inciting incident for Anderton, like why he's on pre-crime at all, is that he lost his son. And in that scene, there's a couple interesting things. So one is when he goes under the water, he looks up, he can't see his son anymore. His son is obscured through the ripples. So his vision is obscured. And then he comes up, and of course his son's gone. And I think that obscuring is important, that he lost sight of his son for a moment, and then his son was gone forever. And then there's this idea that, well, if he can see the future, he'll never lose sight ever again, because he sees the future, right? So I think that's driving Anderton in a certain way. And then the other thing is these ripples, right? These ripples come back in another way. So there's the ripples in the water as he looks up at his son. Then there's the ripples that Colin Farrell, Whitworth, figures out Anne Lively's death is because the wind is blowing one way, and the ripples go towards the dock, and then in the other murder, the ripples are going away from the dock because it happened at a slightly different time.
Right.
And so the ripples are the clue for Whitworth to figure out that, in fact, Anne Lively was really murdered. And so I think it's interesting that, ripples and sort of through the vision, the visual system, like going through a kind of obscuring of ripples, again, it has that double metaphor, in that it can obscure, but it can also enlighten, right? Because it reveals the truth to Whitworth. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I love that too. I love that that's like a good detective novel kind of detail. The ripples going one way, the ripples going the other. And we find out, he's like a good policeman, Colin Farrell.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And, I think he's
probably better than John Anderton.
Yeah. Good point.
He asked some questions.
It's a good point. Yeah. He's actually curious about what's going on. But I think what's interesting about this movie is that, if you watch this movie and then you come to it a year later, or in our case, I think a couple of years later, we don't watch it every year, but we watch it every couple of years, and we're always like, what happens? Right? You're always a little bit confused because it goes quickly. There's a double ending, and the setup and everything to get him to Leo Crow is kind of confusing.
Yep.
And
convoluted. I forget it every time. I'm always like, I know Max von Sydow's bad, but I don't remember how he gets here.
I remember every time we watch it. Now I'm always going to remember that Colin Farrell's good, because that's something you don't. The first time you're like, oh, Colin Farrell's bad, right? He wants to take down pre-crime, and Cruise is the best, right? But of course, Colin Farrell he's actually a good guy, and might even be the better cop in the end. And so, I think, and he ends up fighting for Anderton in the end too. And that's something I always remember now when I watch it, which I think is cool.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about when you were talking about about comparing Agatha and John Anderton, about their blindness and ignorance, and how that works is that, they're both struggling with being in the present, right? Because John Anderson's fixated
that's
on the
interesting.
past.
Yeah.
He's obsessed with the past and what he's been going through. He's stuck in his grief, and he's stuck in this obsession with preventing what has already happened. You can't prevent what's already happened, but in his own way, through pre-crime, he's sort of trying to prevent what's already happened. He's watching home videos every single night. He is in the past. Agatha is in the future all the time. She can't, against her will. And when she's finally freed, she asks, when is it, or is it now? And then she says, I'm so sick of the future. And I was thinking about that in terms of control and John's need to be in control, and his sort of obsession, addiction to faith in pre-crime as a way to try and control what you can't really control. Like you can't change the past and you can't prevent pain, but that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
And Agatha gets to live out her end, her happy ending is that she gets to live in the present. And I think why I wondered when we rewatched this last week, I wasn't so fond of the ending. I felt like it just sort of like felt like it had a little bow on it, and there was a voiceover, and I was like, Spielberg, you just can't help yourself. And in particular, I wondered why we needed to see him back with his wife with a pregnant belly. But the more I thought about it, I thought that was like it was showing that he's relinquishing that kind of control and obsession that he had with the past, and he's living in the present, and he's letting in the possibility of some bad things happening in the future, but overall you're just accepting life, right? Like that's such an act of faith to have a child again, to start over again, after you've been through so much pain before,
right? And it's just like how bad it could be.
Exactly. Yeah, how bad it can be, and you're gonna open yourself to the possibility, because there also could be so much good,
right? Well, I actually think I'm glad you brought up the ending, because I was actually reading a little bit about the movie, and there's this theory that I think is quite interesting, which is that the ending is just a dream that he has while in the prison. And the idea is that because we're told that the people who go to the prison just see what they want to see, they just like live out a fantasy, right? And they're kept sort of happy, but they're in a dream state. And what happens at the end of the movie happens so quickly and so improbably that it does suggest that maybe this is just a dream of Tom Cruise in the prison. In particular, the thing I'm thinking about is that Lamar gives himself away to the wife, which is fine. She might have been able to figure that out, but when but the way she gets Tom Cruise Anderton out of the prison, is she uses the old eyeballs that are just in his box of like discarded office stuff with like, hey, you're fired, take your box out. And he's got the box of goods, and he's got the eyeballs just happen to be in there.
Right.
And so that's the first improv. Like, why would the eyeballs be in there? And like, how long are they in there? And like, don't eyes just like, wouldn't it be like rotting?
So gross.
Okay. 2, they didn't change the key card system with the eyeballs.
Already gotten into the
he's already gotten in with his old eyes.
Once with his old eyes.
So it's like
HR needs to get on it.
Yeah, like they're like, this guy's
them.
now imprisoned, but like, and we know his wife has his eyes, and we're not going to change the systems. Like, what is going on? So it does seem like maybe that is some evidence to think this really is just a fantasy,
right?
And then that makes the movie super bleak, right? Then the movie has like shades of Brazil, where you get this like at the end of Brazil, right? You get this sort of fever dream, and then he sort of wakes up and he realizes, no, he actually didn't escape. He's still in the chair, like being tortured or whatever. And this movie doesn't tell you that, but it hints it.
Yeah, no, I like that idea, especially because there are 2 movies that come before this: a Tom Cruise movie and a Spielberg movie that play with second endings or other alternative readings, which is AI, which
that has the coda ending too.
Has the coda ending, which is the happy ending, right? Because the if you take out the coda, he's just sitting underwater, right, for forever and
Yeah.
ever and ever. And in the Coda ending, he gets his happy ending. He gets to be with his mommy one more
The
time.
hyper evolved humans, they're like super whatever, or not humans. I guess maybe they're just like hyper evolved AI creatures, right?
Yes,
They
yeah,
like
I
are
think
able
so.
to figure out what he wants, and then they just
grant
give it
him
to
his
him.
wish,
Yeah.
right? Which I can't. I mean, I know that ending's been really criticized, but I think he did do it because the original perhaps was like didn't test well with audiences. I mean, it's pretty bleak.
I mean, it's still bleak because I
It's
think he just
bleak
gets
either
one. I think he just
way.
gets one night with his
mom.
I think they like are somehow able to like
my
bring her back or
Oh my
something
God,
for
guys,
one.
we can't. I'm gonna start crying if we talk about AI. We can never do
Okay,
that
all right,
podcast because
yeah,
I'm gonna cry the entire freaking time. But anyway, he just did a movie right before
Yeah.
Minority Report that has this kind
the
of
coda.
like happy ending coda specifically. That's an illusion. And then the other movie that I was thinking about when we were watching this was Vanilla Sky.
Yeah.
Which is another Tom Cruise running, needing to clear his name. Maybe he murdered somebody. Maybe he didn't. Is this all a dream? Question mark movie.
Yeah.
Which I think I was bringing some of that Vanilla Sky baggage into this movie.
What do you mean by that?
Just because we are already kind of like primed to think about whether or not something. I remember thinking with the bleach bypass, I mentioned everybody has halos in the movie, and at one point I remember thinking like it looks similar to the 3D video that he was watching of his wife where she got blurred out on the edges because you said the quality wasn't very good. And at some point I remember thinking, is this all a dream?
Right, I see. It's like he's just like watching the video of himself.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That doesn't make any sense. But the fact that I was like primed
It's
to think that
suggestive,
at all, I think was because I was. This is right at the Vanilla Sky moment.
Yeah, Vanilla Sky is just the year before. I think, right?
So. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, in that sense, this movie fits of its time with that kind of like these sort of twist ending movies with sort of heady, pseudo heady material, kind of yeah.
Well, pseudo had a material still going with Nolan.
Well, I take the pseudo right out of that expression. Take that pseudo right out and slam it down
like,
into the ground.
Take that back.
Yeah. No, man. Nolan knows what he's doing. I once saw this video of Nolan explaining how he conceived of Memento, like how he conceived of the timeline in Memento, so that how he charted it out in his mind so that he could like film it and understand it. Man, dude thinks he's really smart. Like he conceives of it as a horseshoe. So he draws the whole time frame. He's like, look, here's how to make sense of it. Draws a horseshoe. And then he says, at each point in the film, there's a line. And he says, what we do is we just go from this scene on this side of the horseshoe to this scene on this side of the horseshoe. And then what we're doing is, and then you can see where they meet in the middle. That's the middle horseshoe, middle part of the horseshoe. And so that's and one's going forwards and one's going backwards, right? And so he's just like, that's how I thought of it. And it's like, it's really brilliant once you see it that way, because then you can see how you're going to actually map it out, how you're going to have to like map out the script and map out the shots and edit it and everything.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's just like, yeah, we're just bouncing back and forth on two sides of this horseshoe. Anyway, I can't wait for Tenet. That's all I'm saying about this. I just can't wait. I think it's going to be like Memento to the max.
Oh, man. The great thing about Memento, similarly with Minority Report, is I always forget what happens in Memento.
Yeah, man. Who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy, right? Yeah,
I've
no
seen that movie,
spoilers
like,
here. But
so many times, but I'm always like, I'm just as confused as Guy Pearson every time.
It is really a really wonderful movie just because it's so well constructed, and also because the structure is designed exactly to mirror the subjective inner state of the main character, which is, yeah, I just can't.
It's very neat.
It's brilliant. I mean, it really is. It's yeah. Anyway, all right. I think that'll do it. I don't want to just keep gushing about Nolan.
We should end every podcast with just a quick love note to Nolan.
Yeah.
But this movie is by Spielberg. We like him too.
Spielberg's good. Yeah, he's done a lot of good movies. So and
our hot take is that we think Spielberg is good.
Okay, actually, hold on. Let's end on this. So
yes,
Spielberg. Let's do Spielberg top 5. Do you want to just grab your
top 5?
Yeah.
What the? Crap?
Do you have your phone?
Oh my God! All right. Well, you're gonna have to go. I don't know where my phone is. Hold on.
Okay.
This is a surprise.
All right. I'm gonna pull it up. Spielberg top 5, okay? I'll go for no. How about we got to go descending order 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, for Pete's sake, I'm not gonna rank. Hold on, I'm just gonna name 5 that I like.
No, that's fine, but descending order. You okay? We're gonna go.
What do you mean by descending order? I'm not. My point is that I'm gonna do 5 of equal preference. Okay.
Okay, hold on.
Because I don't have the wherewithal to rank in real time. That's bananas.
All right, you ready? I'll go first.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
ready.
Number 5 is
Warhorse. Just kidding. Sorry.
Number 5 is AI, artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Okay. Number 4 is Minority Report.
Okay. Ooh,
Okay.
What got? Okay. Okay. I'm intrigued.
Number 3 is Jurassic Park.
Okay.
Number 2 is Munich.
You put Munich at 2?
Yeah.
You crazy.
And number 1, Schindler's List.
Okay. I've seen Munich like once.
Munich rules. I love that movie so much. That movie is like the ultimate movie. It's just so many scenes that are just like perfect like movie scenes.
We got to rewatch it. It
That
didn't
movie-
make that big of an impression on me.
That movie freaking rocks. Okay, so
Okay.
that's so let me just say it one more time.
All right.
5 is AI. 4 is Minority Report. 3 is Jurassic Park. 2 is Munich. 1 is Schindler's List. That's just off the dome, but I think
Off
you
the
know,
dome.
basically that's what I would say.
All right. I'm gonna go 1 through 5 because my brain doesn't. I'm not sure where I'm gonna land yet. I'm just gonna riff.
Mhm.
I don't think I can go backwards because I might screw it up and not end it with my number 1 as my number 1. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
Yeah.
All right. So number 1, Schindler's List.
You're going Schindler's too.
Yeah, it's an amazing movie. I remember thinking it the first time I watched it, being like, "This is an okay Oscar movie," and then the second time I watched it, I was like, "Oh no, this is incredible!
really good
It's so good." Jurassic Park number 2, Minority Report number 3. So we're pretty close.
Mhm.
Munich is not gonna be in my top 5. I'm sorry. Then I'm not quite sure how my 4 and 5 shake out. But if I'm just like getting loose, I would say E.T. and then Saving Private Ryan.
I'm glad you actually went get some ET some love because I was wondering if I was kind of hating on ET by not putting it in there, but ET I really like.
You know, I've actually only seen E.T. in full once
Yeah,
with you, and it made an incredible impression on
it's
me.
a good movie.
Because my parents
It
were
really
E.T.
is.
haters.
Oh,
And they were always like, that movie's trash. So we didn't have it in the house. And then once I watched it at Club Med movie night at 8 p.m. and I fell asleep. But I was really freaked out by the 2 fingers. I basically only got through the first scene, you know, when he like puts his little fingers and like pulls back the grass. And I was just like, 2 fingers, I'm out.
how old were you?
I was 20. No, I don't remember. I was pretty young.
Okay.
Yeah, like 6 or something like that. Get off my back. We used to go to Club Med when Diana was a baby and like still eating baby food.
Okay.
So
Well-
I think I was pretty young.
I will say a couple things about my list. So caveat: I have not seen Jaws in a long time.
Yeah.
So that's a big caveat. That one could sneak up. The other one that I haven't seen in a long time, Catch Me If You Can. I remember liking it. It's unclear to me whether it could really jump into the top 5 for me. Another caveat is I don't like Close Encounters that much.
I don't either.
I'm okay on Close Encounters, but I don't like it that much.
It's not tops for me.
One more caveat is that I have not seen Warhorse.
So many caveats. Yeah.
Okay. Now Warhorse is, I think, universally disliked as far as Spielberg movies go. But 2 things count in its favor for me. World War I, because there's just not enough World War I movies. I'm intrigued. And 2, I like movies by animals.
You do. And you like
So-
a good horse. You like a good Stubbs horse.
Yeah, I like horse paintings.
You do.
Okay, so those are just a couple of caveats. I haven't seen The Terminal.
Haven't seen Posed. I feel like there's just been a
Haven't seen The
run
Post,
of
yeah.
like Oscar.
Haven't seen Ready Player One.
Spielberg
I don't
movies
expect
that-
that to overtake.
No.
So there's a couple caveats here, but
No, we're not completionists. We weren't claiming to be completionists.
Yeah.
But we like his work.
Yeah.
We think he's not bad.
he's a solid director. Dude knows how to make a good movie. All right, so with that, I think we should wrap it up. And so, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Wait, can I say one of my favorite parts about the movie?
Of course.
I was just thinking about this. This line has been like bouncing around in my head, but you know, he says he wants to keep his eyes when he's getting his eyes removed. And the guys asked why. And he says, because my mother gave them to me. And Tom Cruise is so charming.
Yeah, he can say anything, and you're just like that. This sounds so smooth and natural.
So smooth.
Like he just thought of that right on the fly.
I know. He's the best. Justin's making an face.
He's fine.
Because my mother gave them to me.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. My new favorite part.
Hold on, real quick.
Yes.
Where is this? This is one of your favorite Tom Cruise performances?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't differentiate it from any of the other Tom Cruise performances.
So rude.
I don't know.
So much shade on Tom Cruise. America doesn't even deserve him as an action hero. He's just maybe our greatest movie star.
Yeah. He's a weirdo.
No, he's a weird person. I'm not saying he's not a weird person, but I think he may be our greatest action star. Maybe our greatest movie star.
Okay. The chips are down. Laura's putting her bet on Cruise. I'm putting my bet on, I don't know, but probably not Cruise. Maybe Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I don't know. But not Cruise.
We're gonna watch San Andreas Fault next. That's gonna be our next podcast.
Blows. Oh my God, what a waste of time. Remember that time we were like, hey, let's go see a movie. Like, like we wanted to see a movie and before we decided what movie to see. Remember that? We were just like,
that
hey,
happens to us
see a movie.
Literally every Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, we're like, let's go see a movie.
That's also why we ended up seeing that crazy X-Men movie. Every Memorial Day weekend, we lose our damn minds.
Last Stand, right? X-Men, or
is it Last Stand? We pay for like a really expensive
Age of
3D
Apocalypse.
movie.
Age of Apocalypse. That movie also was total garbage. Which one was worse? I'm asking myself questions now.
San Andreas is worse.
I'm gonna say Apocalypse was worse.
Okay.
I think Apocalypse was just a piece of junk all the way through. At least with San Andreas, The Rock was like looking good, maybe. I don't know. He had he was at his strength on. And there were a couple scenes where they had to slow down Mama Cass. Right? Mamas and the Papas with the rolling.
You like the slow down Mamas and the Papas?
Yeah, earthquake scenes. Actually, that was just in the trailer, but I think that made it better for me. Just that the trailer featured
a slowed down song.
A slowed down like California Dream as the waves of the earthquake destroys California. Shout out to all our friends in California. I hope everything is well. We're not excited about the prospect of an earthquake. We're just excited about watching it on screen. Yeah, okay, so with that, let's end. Thank you for listening. I'm assuming most of you didn't make it this far, but
no.
If you did, congratulations. You made it to the end of the podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.